I think we're here.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Hello. Hello, everyone who's joining us. For those of you who are joining us via the website itself, make sure you click that play button if you haven't already. Yes, it's talkative guest on our website chat says, I haven't pre-registered. Can I still attend? You're here. You're in the right place. So please go ahead and join in the little minute chat on the right-hand side of the screen. You're going to see all kinds of different kinds of tools and things that we're going to talk about throughout the day. But first off, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and welcome. My name is Sarah Langworthy, and with me today is my wonderful and most esteemed colleague, Adam Reinwald. And we are going to be talking a lot about virtual events today. That's why you all are here. So we wanted to kind of do a little bit of show and tell, a little bit of telling you some of the things that we've learned in doing some virtual events. We're going to be talking about planning. We're going to be talking about video editing. We're going to be talking about live streaming. We're also going to talk about that icky little thing called money. How much does this cost to do, both in terms of hiring out, that sort of thing, as well as, you know, how do you make money on your streams? I know a lot of organizations are thinking about, you know, how do we make up ticket revenues and those sorts of things. So we'll be talking about a lot of that stuff today. We would love your questions and comments throughout. I see a lot of people are jumping in on the comments here. So a couple of just logistical things. We have on the website, you see not only the stream going on, I see there are 31 of you joining us already. That's lovely. There's a little box to the right-hand side of that stream, and you can type your comments in there if you would like. That is a service called Minute Chat, which we find really useful if you're going to embed your live stream in your website and you want people to be able to interact. So go ahead and try that out. Let us know your questions and comments. We are watching that. The other thing that you can do if you would like to participate in the conversation is that you can join us via YouTube directly. So if you happen to like YouTube and have a Google account and want to jump over there and watch us on YouTube itself, that is also totally fine. And when you do that and you comment, we actually see your comments and can feature them on the stream. So if you've got great questions that you want to make sure are featured visually and kind of see what that's like, make sure to hop over to YouTube and join us over there. Adam, who do we have in chat? We've got a bunch of people chiming in from everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. We've got folks all up and down the West Coast. We've got a bunch of folks in California, from the northern part all the way down to the southern part, San Luis Obispo, all the way to Truckee, Tahoe, California. We've got all the way up into Seattle. Going across the country, we've got folks from New York. So nice. They named it twice. A lot of folks here in Minnesota. We're happy to see Chicago, a few other places. We're so excited to get a chance to meet everybody and chat a little bit today. So please keep the comments coming as we filter in some more information. We're happy to do so. Again, if you on the Minute Chat right now, please feel free to change your nickname unless you are in love with the given nickname that you got when you signed in. That way it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to call you by name as opposed to Virtuous Hugger or something like that. So yeah, we're happy to see your real names there unless you want to remain anonymous, and that is okay too.
I mean, I think Minute Chat does a great job of coming up with anonymous names. We've got Talkative Guest. You better live up to your name, Talkative Guest. And then we have Curious Person. So ask lots of questions. Yeah. So for those of you who are like, what are they talking about? Head over to the main website, which is right here, where you can also get some free downloads I'm going to talk about in just a second. So head on over there and you can kind of participate in the silliness happening on the Minute Chat right now. So
Sarah, a little quickly about Minute Chat. As we were putting together our virtual event back in April, Minute Chat was the kind of last minute solve for us. It was a free service. We were happy with it because people didn't have to sign in, but we had tremendous response on that particular chat functionality. So we highly recommend Minute Chat if you don't otherwise want to go through a different platform. So just a little bit of that.
Yeah, and the free plan gives you, I think, up to 50 people. So if we get more than 50 people participating in the chat, you might end up not being able to log in and participate there. Apologies for that. But we are using the free plan just to kind of give you a sense for what this is like. So want to make sure we dive in and ask you all some questions first. So really am curious, want to know from you, what topic is most relevant to you and your organization right now? And if you want to let us know in the various chat places where you can chat with the number of the thing that is most burning to you right now in your organization. Is it planning and strategy for creating a virtual event? Is it how to do things like virtual choir pieces and other artistic considerations? For those of you who are musicians and joining us, that's a big challenge. For some of you, it might be the technology, like how do you make a live stream work, like what you're seeing right now, or other. Do you have another question that you would like to throw in there? So we've got a bunch of people joining from New Hampshire and New Jersey. I will let all of you kind of have a moment to respond to the poll. We're getting a few threes, a few ones, a few twos, kind of a good mix I'm seeing here. What about you, Adam?
Yep, same thing over here. A lot of threes. People want to know about the tech, the specific tech for making virtual events and choirs. I understand that completely. It feels like it's the thing that is the furthest from what we do as artists and so forth. So I hear you completely. I understand.
Yep.
And some folks are saying 1, 2, and 3, which is kind of amazing. So
all of it.
If you want to know the whole thing, you're going to get the whole thing. So absolutely.
We're definitely going to talk about all of that. So here, I will show you. This is super cool. One of the features that StreamYard has, and we'll talk about StreamYard as a tool later, is that we can feature Brenda's question. She says, or comment. She says, planning and strategy for creating an effective virtual event for organizations as we give grants. So that's a great question. Granters who are out there. I love that question. All right. Anybody, any other things? No, I think we got like a good mix, which is great because we're going to cover most of that today. All right. So I do want to draw your attention to a couple of free things that are available on the website that we directed you to. They should just be right under the stream. So if you just scroll down a little bit, you will find these things. The first is the Creating Vibrant Virtual Events mini workbook. It's about 6 pages long or so. It covers some of what we're talking about today, and then also has a bunch of thought and reflection questions to get you planning. And we'll reference some of those a little bit later in the stream as well. And then Adam created this great handout all about website. Adam, you want to tell people about this?
Yep, just a little bit of a 4-step process that I've been working on and developing with some of my clients currently at the Five Wings Arts Council in central Minnesota. Some wonderful folks up there. And as we kind of look at their organizations, I find that perhaps websites get a little bit glossed over. If your focus is on the art, which it should be, sometimes you don't give enough attention to what the website is doing for you. And so I've created this little small checklist here to think about ways to optimize website and especially prepare website for engaging your patrons and your folks. In particular, I like to think of it as 3, 2, 1. Not only is it a great way to barbecue ribs, but if you're looking at 3, 2, 1, 3 visuals per website page, 2 lines of text, and 1 call to action. It's a kind of a great little way to think about all your website page. If you have more text than that, chances are folks are not going to be able to read it. Yeah, great point. So we have these free things here for you to take and use and share, and we hope you find them useful. And we would love to hear how you've been using them and if they're helpful and what else you need to know. So grab those on the website as well. We also want to know throughout today, what questions do you have? Ask us in chat anytime. We have been kind of getting a sense from people more broadly what their questions are. As we said, we're going to be talking about a lot of these different things. So, maybe save your question for that particular segment. We'll also leave some time at the end as well to try to cover anything we didn't get to. But yes, we want to hear from you. So please let us know your questions throughout as we go today. So Adam, I think that maybe we should start at the very beginning because it's a very good place to start. The music puns are terrible.
Terrible. I love but come on. I know.
Go do your thing. It's all good.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Adam, to talk a little bit about some of the background for how to get started when you're thinking about virtual event. What do I do and how?
So the first question, I know why folks are here is because you're probably staring headlong at a virtual event. But my first question would be, have you truly exhausted all options in having an in-person event? I think that the CDC, at least in the United States, is making that recommendation for all of us. However, I have heard many wonderful stories about people getting really creative in a very safe way. So I would first put the question to you, have you exhausted that thought of we can do in-person events? My good friends up at Staples, Minnesota are actually going into an air removal machine shed to make sure that they can have rehearsals. And it's absolutely fantastic. They're going to be distanced and spaced out and masked and everything, and the air handling takes the air out. But that's the kind of creativity, not a typical rehearsal space, but that's what they're working on there. So first off, a virtual event, that's probably why you're here, but have you really exhausted all that option? So just some things to think about there. Often organizations see virtual events as what everybody is doing. We should too. That may not be the best approach for your organization. Just because everybody is doing it, you have to ask yourself if that's truly the optimal idea. But if you are going to take a look at virtual events, there's some things to think about when you look at why to do that. Audiences absolutely crave connection. They want to be with you as an organization, especially right now, since it's likely been quite some time before you've had a physical performance in front of your organization, in front of your patrons. They want that connection with you. So virtual connections help sustain your patrons through and between live performances. I'll say that again because it's kind of a little thing to think about. Think of virtual connections as a way to sustain connection with your audience between live performances. I find that a lot of people are thinking, well, I'll just maybe market my concert with this. That's fine, but you're not asking your audiences to stay engaged in the same way, right? So even right now, that's even much more especially important. But digital strategies, they can be all the way from lo-fi recording things on your iPhone, all the way to some of the hi-fi stuff we're going to talk about a little bit later. But know that there is a difference between simple and complex, costly and inexpensive. But you always need to have your art or your mission. If you're not an arts organization, you're here. You have to have the art and the mission at the center of your virtual event. And that is a question you have to ask yourself and your organization if you're deciding to absolutely go down the route of making sure you're doing a virtual event for the right reasons. So just a little things to think about. What can virtual events help with? Mission delivery, for sure. If you keep your art and your mission at the center, that is absolutely right. Your core product delivery, yes, you have to be able to show that the thing that you do is still available. That's where the idea of virtual choirs, virtual ensembles comes in, things like that. Continuing some momentum all the way through. That's a really great way to use a virtual event to just tag on to something you came through all the way. And then, of course, engagement all the way to retention of revenue. Those things go absolutely hand in hand. The more that your audience feels engaged, the more they are going to be providing you with revenue. So just a little thought about why we want to look at virtual events and things like that. And then if you decide absolutely we're going to go ahead with a virtual event, I would encourage you to ask yourself these questions. What assets do I have? Do you have live streamed material from the last 6 years? Maybe. That sure makes a virtual event a lot easier. Do you happen to have a camera on hand but have never recorded anything before? So that's assets you have there you need to take a look at. Do you have somebody in your chorus or in your orchestra that happens to be, unbeknownst to you at the time, an amazing video editor? Ask your people what assets you happen to have, whether that be in your membership or in your staff. And then also understand what your staff and what your organization can and cannot do capacity-wise. So what is the time? What are the assets that you have throughout that entire situation? So these are really important questions to ask if you're deciding to do a virtual event. What platform would be ideal for sharing this event? Is that on your website? Is that on something like YouTube or Vimeo? Do you know what you don't know about needing technology? I think a lot of you answered 3 in our initial question. So you probably do know that technology feels a little bit at arm's length, and we're here to help with that. But that's a great thing to assess when you're looking at assets. And then, of course, what do you need to add to fulfill the vision of this event? That is exactly 100% in line. Mm-hmm. After looking at your assets, you might want to
Can I chime in and say sometimes your assets can also be photos and things. So I have a few clients that I'm working with on virtual choirs right now, and I said, you don't have to do the traditional box, head in box people sing their, their bedrooms look if we don't want to. If you have some photographs and other kinds of things that you want to pull in to express the message of the song a little bit differently, you can pull in stock imagery as well, if that's something that you're interested in. So there's lots of different ways to think about assets, both in terms of what do you have internally and what can you access fairly easily and inexpensively. And we'll talk more about those kinds of things as well.
Exactly. So once you take a look at your assets, you might also want to extend that a little bit further and take a look at what your community partners might look like. Are there some businesses that would be happy to underwrite these virtual events because they might happen to have a TV studio attached to them? I'm not real sure, but some things might want to think about in that way. What is the tech that also is involved? A wonderful organization, again, in central Minnesota, Central Lakes College Performing Arts Center, happens to have a fantastic relationship with a video editing crew that does all of their technical events right there. Not otherwise a part of the organization, but they understood that at this time, this is the way that this theater company was able to produce events. And so they worked together to create a series of live events that are happening very, very wonderfully. So what other experts do you have in your potential partnerships? Those are all the things that I would encourage you to explore throughout. So looking at
you never know unless you ask.
Exactly. In looking at the why question, does anybody, have you gone through that thinking? Have you gone through the question of, should we really be doing this event? Does it meet our strategic plan? Is it the way that we can produce core products? I'm interested to hear from you all if you have done that thinking and if you've done that kind of that work about deciding whether or not the why makes it a real question for you. So please let us know. I'd be happy to hear some of that. I know that it's odd to think of all of the reasons why you shouldn't do a virtual event, but they're worth considering until you decide to move fully down that path.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So.
Adam, we have a great question here from Young Professionals Choral Collective, who said, what's the budget for the air removal machine shed facility? That sounds awesome.
I will say, I see that question, YPCC, and welcome. My good friends up in Staples, Minnesota, part and parcel with being a rural chorus is that you sometimes have farmers, and sometimes those farmers have a machine shed with an air removal system already involved. So for this chorus, the budget is zero. So awesome. It's an amazing opportunity to have great stuff up there. So check in with the Staples Area Men's Chorus, samc.org, if you want to make a trip to central Minnesota and have rehearsals in their machine shed. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think that raises a great point about potential partners too, right? Like you never know until you ask. I mean, have a virtual hangout with a few of your choral members or other people, and you may find that, oh, I'm connected to so-and-so who knows so-and-so and such, and you may end up creating something you would never dream of on your own. So stay connected not only with each other, but also with those potential partners.
I've got a lot of folks chiming in saying, yes, we're member engagement is a big reason why we are deciding to go through virtual events. And right now, that is an absolutely fantastic reason to want to move forward. I don't disagree with those reasons at all. In fact, I encourage you to continue exploring what those might look like. Have you considered something that is a non-musical reason to get together? Maybe a listening party or even sharing a movie together. Just a chance to connect in those ways are quite powerful. Could that also happen? The thing that popped into our world this week is drive-in choir, where all of a sudden we had a collection of cars happening around each other. And it was, again, an in-person, non-virtual, but in-person way of keeping your members engaged. Yep. So things like that might work. Could you show up on a high school football field that is currently empty and everybody take their own position about 10 yards apart and see each other, shout over long distances, but still keep safe? So all these things are just some options that I want to take a look at.
Yeah, and another idea I'll throw out that we've had conversations with a variety of people about is this question of how do you keep your singers engaged if you can't be singing together? Are there opportunities to bring in composers or conductors or other educators or people who you would normally never be able to pay to fly to your geographical area to give either a talk or a conversation or a seminar or something like that, who you could approach and say, we would love to have you for our 2 hour, 1 hour, half an hour, whatever, Zoom session with our choir so that they can pick your brain about the composing process for this piece that we did of yours last year that we loved, or for this piece of art that you've created, for all of you artists out there who are of the non-musical variety. Think about those kinds of connections that you can actually create in this virtual space that you would never really be able to do. I mean, all of us are kind of looking for stuff to do and work. And so artists are no different, who are looking for opportunities to engage with people. So, think outside the box, think outside your geographical box for sure.
We did a Zoom potluck dinner meeting on the solstice.
I love it.
Absolutely fantastic. A great way to keep everything kind of right in the mode of how you can stay engaged and keep your members engaged during all of this. That doesn't necessarily have to be a musical thing. So again, virtual events and virtual connections are so vital, not only for members and member engagement, and also for your patrons as well. So something to consider.
That takes us really nicely, Adam, to this question of we'll just do digital for now. You and I both have had so many conversations with people who are like, well, we're just going to do this for now. And then when things go back to normal, we'll go back the other way. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, I had this conversation today with a good friend of mine who's an orchestra conductor, and we both agreed that those who are looking to get back to what they exactly had been doing on February or March of 2020, sometime this fall or even in the spring of 2021, I think you're missing the point a little bit, in that this is the way the world is going. Things are going to shift. Things are shifting tremendously. And this is an actual opportunity to build in some systems digitally that can be here for the long term. This is something that maybe a new way to think about delivering your art and your mission to your patrons. So don't just think about doing digital for now because we need to. Yes, for member engagement, this is a great way to continue that while we're remaining distant from each other. But think about even 2 or 3 years from now, how can a digital strategy all of a sudden jump into your major strategic plan and be something that lives longer on your website, continues to engage your patrons throughout the time, and gives them virtual connections when live performances are happening much more frequently. So all of this stuff, and if you're already in a digital space, absolutely stay there. Don't change, just keep it moving all the way through. So, and what we're here to do is to help you find a little bit of a nugget about how to include some of these things, both now and in the near term. So I think it's something to consider. Don't just do digital for now. Think about this as a way to change for the future in a positive way.
Agreed. We've got a few great comments coming in, Adam. One, the Gentle Soul in our minute chat. I love these names. That's so great. Gentle Soul shares, our weekly rehearsals on Zoom started as just social time, and now we bring in guests for warm-ups or training, or do warm-ups together, and review our songs and play games. And Magnificent Self says, yes, the professor who will lead a workshop on female composers is in California and we're in Massachusetts. So this platform will allow her to lead this from her home. So great. And then this one I'm going to highlight because I did not know about this, and I'm always on the hunt for new things like this. Curious Person says, check out the Collective Virtual Choir. They originate in the UK and are able to do projects at no cost. I don't know how, but awesome. Perhaps connect with them to find out how they do this. They involve people from all over the world.
And Tom is mentioning he hosts a weekly chapter meeting with the Barbershop Chorus, put out a virtual chorus piece every couple of weeks. Nothing fancy or high quality, but keeping active, and that is exactly the point, right? That is exactly what is working here. So fabulous work, everybody. That's excellent work. We're going to help you go a little bit deeper.
Joyful Humanoid asks, what is the going rate for outside people to lead workshops? I actually don't know the answer to this. So if people in chat, if you know the answer, or if you have experience with that, please let us know. I would love to know that as well. So if we have comments on that, that'd be great. I do want to let you know that in the creating vibrant virtual events mini workbook, on pages 5 and 6, there are a bunch of different questions to get you thinking and get you planning your virtual event. So we wanted to make sure to cover some of this planning and some of Adam's great points about, does this fit with your mission and how, and all of that. Those pages of your workbook ebook, again, available free on the website here, will kind of help you get thinking about what do you want to be talking about? How do you want your audience to feel? If you're connecting with singers, what's the purpose of that sort of thing. So be sure to check that out. And so now we want to shift to the dreaded idea of copyright. Dun, dun, dun. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about copyright, but I did want to address this right up front because I always get this question and it is a valid question. And it's one where there's just a lot of ambiguity. So I will start with a caveat that Adam and I are not lawyers. That is not our background. But what we have found in working with our clients, if you are doing music of really kind of any variety, you need to make sure that you either have the copyright clearance to use it or that it is public domain. And so the biggest thing, if you're a choral organization, that you can do is talk to the publisher of the piece that you want to do and ask about a synchronization license. A synchronization license is a little bit different than a mechanical license, which you might have for like CD productions and things like that. The synchronization license very specifically talks about allowing you to put the musical content up online. Now, some publishers will say, yeah, sure, go use it. That's great. For free. Others will say, pay us lots and lots of money to use it for, a one-time thing or to use it for a year. So it really varies. So be sure that you're having those conversations up front. I know on the internet, it feels a little bit like the Wild Wild West and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. But there are a lot of kind of scary horror stories out there about people's channels being completely shut down and just not able to share their music because they didn't either go through the right copyright clearances or that sort of thing. So if you're going to invest a lot of time and energy into creating something virtual like this, make sure that you have the clearances to use the material that you would like to use. Adam, do you have any other thoughts on copyright?
There's a lot of ways to think about copyright in general, and I'm going to speak from my experience, just having been with the National Lutheran Choir for a number of years and working on how things are built on our social media platforms there. In general, Facebook is the Wild West. And I hesitate to say that a little bit, only that some people might hear that as do whatever you want. Don't do whatever you want, but be smart about how you do that. You're going to run into some copyright issues much more frequently on platforms like YouTube and Vimeo. And they do that because they are excellent at making sure their creators are receiving some sort of compensation for that. Right. I also think that this is a great opportunity. Again, we use this term pivot quite a bit. If you have been working from a selection of octavos as choral artists for the last 2 decades that are from sometime in the 1930s through the 1970s, this is a great time to go outside of that octavo because those are for sure under copyright. So go to something much, much earlier. Try your hand at some actual part songs from, say, the Renaissance or any other time that is in public domain, or move to something that's much more current. Parodies are completely without copyright exclusion. That means taking a song that you know and creating new lyrics for that. Also, new commissions or even new creations are also exempt from copyright issues. So if that includes you building a beautiful chord on your Zoom meeting with your rehearsal with your entire choir, and all of a sudden you move up a little bit, that is completely okay to put on YouTube or Facebook because it's not under copyright and it's still a way to connect with your audience and your members. So think about how you can create things now that might sustain you through when everybody comes back together. Maybe you return to that stack of octavos from 1930 to 1990. I would understand if you need to, but I would encourage you to use this time to also find new, easy stuff that is not on copyright.
Yeah, Confident Humanoids brings up the good point. ... with the composer's permission, of course. If you're going to be using new content.
Absolutely.
And new,
I say that because I took that for granted. I will say that, yes, always please make sure you have permission. In fact, this is a great opportunity to use the composer of that piece or inquire if they would come and lead that song on a virtual rehearsal or virtual choir. Mm-hmm. They're not out doing as many things as they used to be. So they might actually find time to be a part of that process with you, and then hopefully would grant permission to use that. So Sarah, going back one tiny step. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Susan says, we're paying $125 an hour each for 2 performers in upcoming chat. That to me sounds, I'd say, pretty standard. Everybody's going to have their own rate and a different rate. But if you're bringing in people, some folks are saying that they're getting them to volunteer or folks that are joining your process are volunteering. Never bad to have a volunteer. I would suggest budgeting for that position later, especially as it becomes something that you want to stay with as you go along.
Great. All right, so now we want to know in chat, what aspects of virtual events that you've seen are most interesting to you and why? So maybe at this point you've had a little bit of experience kind of checking out either different choral organizations doing virtual things or other arts organizations, other, independent musicians doing cool things. What strikes you, or like what are those elements that you're like, oh, that's super cool and I want to figure out how to do that? We'd love to know that in comments as we continue on here. So please keep chiming in. We're going to keep moving here a little bit, but we will come back to some of your answers to this question because we are super curious what it is that you are loving to see. But we want to move and make sure that we are talking about, okay, how do you do it? So let's say you're like, yes, I want to do a virtual event. That is why I'm here spending time with Adam and Sarah today. That is great. We want to dig into that. We want to talk a lot about the live event versus a pre-produced event. Now, a live event could be a live stream like what Adam and I are doing right now. We are both in our separate geographical boxes and, having this conversation. And maybe you're doing the sing-along or something like that. That can be a live event. That is a live stream event. The other option, as what Adam referred to a little bit earlier, is some of these live events where you are streaming live with maybe a small group of your singers socially distanced, doing, taking all those precautions into consideration, but you are streaming from a venue, from somewhere where you have lots of cameras set up, getting lots of great footage, and you are streaming that live to maybe YouTube or Facebook, for example. Then we're going to talk about those events, and then we're also going to talk about the idea of a pre-produced event. What we mean by pre-produced is basically that all of your content is recorded ahead of time. So maybe you will have some components that are new that you film as we described the live events just a second ago. So maybe you gather some singers safely and record a few new pieces that you're learning all in one space. But that video doesn't go directly to YouTube. You take it and you get to kind of edit it a little bit and that sort of thing, and package it maybe with some existing videos that you already have, some other imagery, some other art that you want to infuse throughout, and create kind of a larger event that becomes basically just a big video that you then upload to your platform of choice. So we want to make sure to talk a little bit about both of those things. So before this event started, we actually sprinkled social media with hey, tell us what you're wondering. So this is a cue from you. Lori asks, is it best to live stream from the venue? And if so, how? Or to record it? Also, how do we handle transitions in live streams from venues specifically? So this is a great question about some of the logistics for how to make this work, especially if you are gonna go the route of being at a venue and doing some streaming from there. So Adam, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of this and your experience with this, because I know you have been doing a little bit of investigating in this area.
I have. My new organization, Open Voices, is planning a live concert towards the end of August, and I'm struggling right now with. I've got a handful of performers, each doing about 15 to 20 minutes, and I am struggling with whether or not that should be a live event that we put up kind of all at one time and have a staggered start time for each performer, a staggered entrance time for each performer, or whether I should pre-record everything and package it together in a handy dandy thing like that. Also, the venue, should it be indoors in an acoustically gorgeous chapel, or am I able to find an outdoor venue that still sounds usable and decent, but is definitely a lot safer? So all those things are really interesting to think about. I am leaning toward, because I want to err on the side of caution, pre-recording everybody in an indoor space. That's where I'm kind of leaning towards, and in fact, the performers have asked that to be a consideration. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I think to do so, certain tech elements are necessary, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the tech that you need for that. But I think you could approach something like that even with the simplicity of your own camera phone at some point. So there's all sorts of stuff we can talk about in there, but that's what I'm looking at too. Live streaming from a venue, absolutely possible. The more the more high quality you go, of course, the more costly it is. Something from an indoor space, you just have to be very concerned about who is going to be there and safety, all those issues. But I do think it's possible, especially with the right group of performers.
Great. So Carol then asks, what platforms work best for the live event, and what about for posting a video later? So what works best for a live stream in terms of some of the tech and in terms of how do you set this up? And then what about for pre-produced? Pros and cons of each would be helpful. Why, Carol, your wish is our command. So here, we are going to break down a little bit of the live streaming pros and cons. So again, this would be something like what you're watching right now. Maybe you're streaming from a venue specifically. Some of the pros of a live stream are that there are more opportunities for engagement and connection with your audience. So as you've all experienced for the last half an hour or so, we've been popping in and out of chat while the other person is talking and responding to comments. And we've been, trying to showcase your comments and answer your questions and really kind of have that dialogue in a way that hopefully is making you feel like you're kind of in a room with us in a way. So there are more opportunities to engage your audience if you're going to be able to do a live stream, kind of like what we're setting up. Even if you're streaming from a venue, there can be that feeling of, oh, I'm in the room with them as they're performing this live. So it can have that kind of connection piece to it, that feeling of being together, even though you're not actually physically in the same space, you're still kind of sharing that energy, for lack of a better term. In terms of cons, it can be expensive and risky, especially if you're thinking of like a high production value kind of live stream. So, Adam mentioned earlier the National Lutheran Choir. So for the last several years, the National Lutheran Choir has been live streaming their live performances. And that comes with a pretty hefty price tag, because once you get multiple cameras involved to make it a really like professional looking show, for lack of a better term, that comes with a price tag. You have to find videographers who have that capability, not only to film that content, but also to live stream it at the same time. So that's a con for that kind of live streaming. That said, Adam and I do beer choir live streams every week where we use StreamYard, which is what we are using today, and kind of hang out and bring guests and play silly games and lead some sing-alongs. So like live streaming doesn't have to be your most high production value option. You can do smaller things. You can do things kind of on the fly and a little bit more consistently. So if you were looking at how do we do, instead of maybe one big event, how do we kind of build our online audience and our online engagement more consistently over time, live streaming might be a great thing to consider.
Absolutely. I think there's some different platforms that can be used for live streaming that we wanted to talk a little bit about too. And I think you get different aspects with each one, though they're all capable for live streaming. Part of the story with National Lutheran Choir is 6 years ago, we jumped into the opportunity to live stream every concert that we did with upwards of 3 cameras. It was something that we budgeted for. It was something that we had a donor underwrite. But all of a sudden, we came to this time of not having, being able to be together, and we had 6 years of content that was all there. Not all of it was copyright ready, and not all of it was ready for consumption publicly, but it was all something that we did at one point live stream. So you can go high cost for sure, but if you use these simple platforms, maybe Sarah, next slide, is that okay?
Yep.
You use these simple platforms, you can stream right to this stuff. So as Sarah mentioned, we use StreamYard for our beer choir live virtual happy hours. We love the look of it, the relative inexpense of it. We love that it's very easy to use. We love that it does look like a show. If you want something that feels a little bit more like you're having a meeting, but still something that you can go from a meeting into a live broadcast, Zoom does work. Zoom is very, very, very popular right now, but their functionality is improving day by day as they have more and more millions of people on the platform. And this handy dandy little sign right here up on the right hand side is again the OBS sign, and it is a software that actually brings together many different elements into a publishable live stream. So just different ways of working through that. We prefer StreamYard for things like this, things that feel a bit more presentational. We like the functionality of the chat comments that are coming in over here on our right, but there's a number of ways to do. Sarah, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to give people a little bit of a peek of like, what does this even look like and how does it work? So I did a couple of super cute screen grabs earlier. So this is me logged into Zoom. And what I wanted to do is kind of take my mouse here. You can kind of see me over here. I wanted to point out a couple of different things about this. So when you're in a Zoom meeting, if you have a pro plan or higher, you have the capability of streaming to Facebook or to YouTube or to a custom live streaming service. So you'll see kind of down here in this corner over here, it's all of these different options that it enables you to do. So it requires a little bit of setup on the back end. So you need to go into your Zoom account on your web browser and adjust some settings in there. Frankly, the Zoom Support Center is really generally pretty straightforward. So if you Google Zoom to Facebook stream, their help thing will come up and it walks you through exactly the settings that you need to set up in order to make that possible. Then when you're in your meeting, all you need to do is click that three little dot thing down here and then hit live on Facebook. And it will actually bring open your Facebook platform here. This is sort of the back end of what it looks like if you're going to go live on Facebook. So this is sort of the producer's corner, so to speak. So as you can see on this page, there are a few different things, a lot of things that look kind of scary. If you're using the live direct to Facebook from Zoom, you don't need to worry too much about this live stream setup stuff. If you want to set it up as a custom stream, this is important information to have, which is why it's there. But you don't need to go too much into this if you're just trying to do a very simple Zoom to Facebook kind of setup. But this is kind of what the back end will look like. Over here, you've got your, where do you want to post it? I want to post it on a page I manage. I want to post it on Beer Choir. What do I want to say about it? What's the title of the video? And as you can see down here, it's waiting for live video because I didn't actually want to go live at that moment. But basically, your video will pop up into here to tell you that it's connected appropriately. And then you can hit live and you're good to go, good to stream for a little while. There was a glitch at one point with Zoom and Facebook connecting this way. I think they've kind of worked it out, but you might have to run a couple tests to kind of make sure that you're actually understanding how all the things are connecting. But that is a fairly straightforward way to use two platforms that many of you are going to be pretty familiar with and that can kind of get you started there. All right, so the next that Adam mentioned was OBS. So OBS is, as he said, open broadcasting software. This is free, completely free, which I'm always like, how is this free? Basically, think of your TV shows of old or your newscasts or those sorts of things. This is basically that kind of software that allows you in the moment to kind of overlay different things on top of each other. So what you can see here is my face. This was me using my webcam. And I can adjust this. I could adjust the size of this to make me smaller or bigger. I also put in an image here, so I could have an image while I'm also talking. I also had our logo up in the corner, but it also gives you options to kind of transition between different elements. And there's a little bit of a learning curve with OBS. And it also doesn't work super well for things like integrating a Zoom call or, if you're going to have multiple people on a stream, it's not super robust when it comes to that. We ran into a couple of issues with that on a Beer Choir stream at one point. And so, it has some positives and negatives to it, but it's definitely something worth checking out if you want to incorporate live elements along with pre-produced elements. So this could be images. You can play videos through it. There are a bunch of different kinds of content that you can infuse into a live stream in a really professional looking way. So I definitely recommend it for those of you who are feeling a little more tech savvy and like you want to kind of play around a little bit, download it for free, play around. I will say your computer software or your computer hardware, I will say, does matter. So not all computers are created equal. You do need to make sure that you've got enough processing speed and enough RAM and enough storage space on your computer to do a lot of this kind of thing. So just kind of make sure that you're working with the best computer you've got available to you and test it out a little bit and see how it goes. If you're kind of running into some delay issues and that sort of thing, maybe that platform isn't the best for you. And maybe something like StreamYard is. So this slide gives you a sense for what we are looking at right now when we are looking at our stream. I'm going to make
this StreamYard Inception, StreamYardception,
Streamception. Wait, what?
Meta.
Something like that. So this is what our back end looks like at this point. So this was a screen grab of me earlier, but this view looks pretty familiar because that's what we've been using for most of the stream. I do also want to show you some of the other views we can make available. So this is just me. Adam went away. Bye, Adam. You're still there. Oh, sad. Poor sad Adam is sad. You can do a side-by-side like this, where it takes up the full screen, which is kind of nice, but it does require you to be kind of definitely in the middle of your camera as opposed to, sitting off to the side. So just be aware of that. This is sort of the standard 2-block look that we can also have. Or if you decide that someone is more important than the other person, you can make yourself big and the other person small.
Significantly the truth.
Exactly. There you go. Or you can do this side by side, which is a bigger person view and a smaller, capture of some part of your screen that you're sharing. So we really love StreamYard because it gives you a lot of different variables and things to play around with to kind of create the look that you want with your stream. And so it works pretty well. You'll see kind of this functionality here. So this comments tab up here, I don't know if you can see up here that I'm circling. So that's where all your comments come in. Your comments come in right here. So anybody who's commenting on YouTube, we're seeing your comments right here and we just click on it and that's when your comment appears on the stream. Like that. Nancy. Exactly. Poof, there you are. Super easy. There are also banner options. So when I was sharing some banners earlier about where to find the free resources and those sorts of things, you can create those ahead of time or on the fly. It's great. And some branding elements and also private chat where Adam and I, get to chat with each other the whole time and be like, oh my gosh, is it going okay? I don't know. I hope so.
Three little behind the scenes thoughts about these platforms because we've used all three of them. Yeah. We first were doing some of our live events on Zoom. If functionality was great, people understand Zoom. They know how to be there and how to interact with that. The variability in look is not ideal for Zoom. And occasionally when we were sending our stream to Facebook Live, Zoom would drop that stream. Yeah. We have not had that problem with StreamYard yet. We love the look.
Knock on wood.
Oh yes, sorry, knock on wood. My bad.
If the stream goes down, it's your fault.
we love the functionality of StreamYard. We love the look of it, but it is not designed for a meeting necessarily. It is designed to be a public-facing issue. Again, the folks that I met up at Central Minnesota at Central Lakes College Performing Arts Center, really, really interesting. They took 4 actors on a Zoom chat, really a Zoom kind of meeting, ran that through OBS, and that's how they produced their play. And I think OBS is a great kind of conglomerative software where you can have different looks. It can be a public-facing software that really looks nice, looks very professional, but it takes a little bit of technical know-how. Zoom you can do tomorrow. StreamYard you can do tomorrow. Again, some people have been asking whether those are app-based or whatnot. Zoom is an app-based software. StreamYard is a browser-based, which means you could go into your Chrome or your Safari or whatever you're using and just go right into a browser. OBS is a separate purchasable software. So again, I guess that would be app-based as well primarily, but that's maybe a link on that. Does anybody else out there happen to have a different streaming service or streaming platform that they would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, super curious. I'm always on the lookout for new fancy toys to play with, for lack of a better term. Susan asked a great question. So I'm assuming that StreamYard will allow a combination of live commentary and pre-recorded video in lieu of slides, correct? Yes. We will show you that at the very end of the stream when we're going to do a little bit of a sing-along thing. So stay tuned for that, and we'll show you how that works. It's not super intuitive. It could use some improvement, but it does allow you to do that. If you are looking for something more polished in your live event and something, something high production value, I'd recommend looking at something like OBS because it might actually give you what you are looking for that way. But yes, StreamYard does allow you to stream videos and music and that sort of thing. And now I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about it.
Well, it's okay. I'll take over. Somebody asked, is there a cap for the number of speaker squares on StreamYard? The answer is yes. The free version allows for 2, and the pro version paid $20 a month So $240 a year, that's 6. And then the business account, even more, is 8. So 2, 6, and 8 for StreamYard in particular. So
I think they just bumped it to 10. I think I got an email about that this week.
Ooh, see StreamYard coming through.
I know.
All these things are growing along with us, everyone. We're all making some shifts, but they are realizing that the StreamYard is realizing that yes, organizations wanted 10 speakers on their platform,
Right.
so they've enabled that functionality, which is great.
Yeah. All right, great. I'm apparently pushing you out. That wasn't my intention. There we go. Sure, right? So we do also want to turn a little bit to pre-produced events, and what does that look like? So some of the pros and cons of pre-produced. One of the pros is that you have much more control over the entire experience. Like, something could go catastrophically wrong right now on our stream, and that would be a total bummer. Thanks, Adam, for jinxing us. So, you never know with a live event what's going to happen. So if you are like me, like to have a little bit more control over how things are done, pre-produced has its advantages that way, because you can really script everything ahead of time, make sure you know what's going where and how. You can edit everything, make it look exactly how you want before you upload your final product. So there's an advantage there, a little bit more control. You don't have the loose cannon thing where, maybe Adam and I say something ridiculous on the stream. I don't know. It happens sometimes. So, just think a little bit about what stylistically you're looking for there. One of the cons of pre-produced is that it can feel a little bit more like a show rather than a gathering. You're going to probably end up with less engagement maybe in the chat and that sort of thing, because you can't respond to that live like we've been doing throughout this stream here. One way to combat that is to just be sure that you as the organization, or you as the artist, are in the chat while you are showing this event. So there are a couple of ways if you're going to go with the pre-produced route and you want to release on YouTube or Facebook. There are options that are called, is a watch party on Facebook? I always forget. And then a premiere on YouTube, which basically lets your audience know at Saturday, this date at 7 p.m., we are premiering our event, our program, and people can sign up to watch it. It's kind of like an event basically on Facebook. People get a notification on YouTube, that sort of thing. And then you are kind of watching with them. So you would also be watching the stream at the same time. It sort of has a live stream feel, but all of the content is pre-produced. It's just that it starts and is available at a very particular time. And so you're able to kind of log in and comment and be a part of the chat in that way. So so that is a little bit about some of the pre-produced and how all of that works. Adam, other thoughts on that?
No, I think pre-produced, I'm going to refer back to our live virtual gathering in April with the National Lutheran Choir. We realized that we had a wonderful team of videographers that we're working with, that we realized, should we want to do pre-produced, we don't necessarily need that expense to do that. We could have absolutely done that all in-house between building some virtual choirs that Sarah had done and some music videos that I had put together. We realized that was a possibility, just pre-produced. But we wanted the feel of a live show mixed with a pre-produced thing. And we wanted that sense of communication with the audience, exactly like what's happening here with chat and comments. So we decided to kind of go with a hybrid model. I like pre-produced right now because it allows you, again, to kind of keep a veneer of professionalism on that, I think is really nice. Other times it's great, depending on what you want to present, to have the authenticity of a live event. Something happening off the cuff, I think can really be a way to go. It really depends on what you want audiences, and not your existing audience, your potential audience to get from your presentation. Pre-produced is wonderful if you want to have multiple people in different locations. A little bit harder to do that live with real care, but of course, we did a beer choir event with the Chorus America virtual conference a couple weeks ago, and we had Blake from London, England, chime in with the three of us here in Minnesota. So for certain live events, it absolutely can work.
Pondering Being in the Minute Chat says, authentic is engaging even if pre-produced. Yes. Quote of the day. I love it. It's very, very true. You can build an authentic experience that is also crafted ahead of time. That is 100% possible. It's hard I will say. You have to be really clear on your messaging and on your voice and how and what you're trying to communicate through your art. And so it takes a lot of planning on the front end, but you can absolutely have a very engaging and authentic experience for your viewers in a pre-produced environment. We do also want to talk a little bit about some of the tech responsible for doing all this production work behind the scenes. So I do a lot of video producing, and I am a big fan of Final Cut Pro. It is my software of choice. The other logos up here, the one in the middle is Adobe Premiere. So Final Cut Pro is a Mac-only program. Adobe Premiere, I believe you can use on both, but a lot of my colleagues who have PCs and who are video editors will use Adobe Premiere. Adobe Premiere is sort of a subscription-based fee versus Final Cut is a one-time, like $300, I think it is, fee to get Final Cut for life, which also I really loved. But Adobe Premiere has a lot of other programs associated that do lots more with animation and motion graphics and that sort of thing. So if you want to try your hand at animation, that would probably be a platform to look into. And the third one here is a platform called Wondershare Filmora. And Adam can talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I do want to give you a kind of back end view of what a virtual choir of 4 people looks like in Final Cut Pro. It's a little bit overwhelming. But basically, for those of you who might be familiar with iMovie, it's a similar kind of setup. So down here, we have, the different video clips that we're working with, kind of layering on top of each other. And then I've got some other images that I pulled in. So I've got some stock photos that we decided to overlay over top instead of having the traditional heads in boxes virtual choir for this one, because we felt like the imagery told the story of the piece a little bit better than just staring at our faces in this particular case. There are reasons to use the traditional heads in boxes and there are reasons to not. So again, it really just depends on what you're going for in your production. But basically, you're working with different kinds of files here. You're editing some audio, transitions and things over here. So there's a lot here, and there's a lot to go into. For those of you who are interested and who like kind of this sort of thing, I do on my website at developlayllc.com/virtual choir, all one word. I do have a packet of resources that include a link to a video tutorial of me walking through how I edited this video. So if you are like, I have a group of a couple of people and I want to put a virtual choir together, but I don't really know where to start, that might be a great resource for you. So I just bring that up because some of you may want to kind of teach yourselves a little bit in this time where we're trying to put these things together. So this gives you at least a little bit of an idea, not a whole lot. We don't have time to really go into a full-on tutorial, but I did want to kind of give you a snapshot at least for what does it look like and how does this work? And yeah, it's a lot to kind of layer all these things on top of each other. But I'm a big nerd. Adam, I don't know if you knew this about me.
Yep, I did.
You totally knew this about me. So I love playing around with programs like this. So if you're like me, you're like, I want to try to break something, then Final Cut is maybe for you because there's a lot to learn, steep learning curve, but it's also a really great program and does a lot. Adam, can you talk a little bit about Wondershare Filmora?
Yep, I have been working with Filmora for the last 5 years. It's kind of I would say in a small hierarchy, and I'm not going to, hopefully this doesn't get anybody upset, but I would say that iMovie on your Mac, if those of you using iMovie, is kind of at the bottom. Filmora might be one small step up. It's approximately $120 to buy the software, relatively inexpensive, and it doesn't allow nearly the flexibility of Final Cut Pro, but it is really easy to use. If this dummy can figure it out, you all can too. It allows you to do relatively simple one-shot film editing. I found that as I got much better at it, I could put together a music video using some existing audio with new images in approximately 2 hours. So thinking about a 3-minute song, 2 hours, really quite simple. It's a good program. It's not not nearly Final Cut Pro, which I'm trying to learn right now. So it's just kind of a midway to look at it. And, some of the things that we can do is help talk you through how to use those programs too. So find us at developlayllc.com and openvoicesllc.com. We can kind of walk you through each one of those things in a very separate way. So awesome.
We had a question in the YouTube comments about where to go for that link that I mentioned. So it's up on the screen for any of you who might be interested. There are other resources included in that as well. So it's kind of the, like, if you want to DIY your own virtual choir package, like I tried to create a bunch of stuff that would make that possible and useful for you. We have a couple of questions, Adam, in comments that I want to bring up. One is, anyone with any experience using Jack Trip for singing together? I have never heard of this. Have you heard of this?
I have not. I have not know what that is.
So curious if others have had experience with that, and to tell us a little bit more about what that's like, because, I always love learning new things. Here's a great question from Engaged Self. I like that. Resources for basic tips for recording video to possibly share with others who might send you raw footage to put together. So much easier to edit when the original video quality is better. Boy, don't I know it. So I'm going to put this link back up on the screen, because there is actually a free portion, a couple of resources that include a PDF. It's an instruction sheet for your musicians who are wanting to film a virtual choir. So these are people who you're like, okay, we're going to do a virtual choir together. And they're like, I'm sorry, how? So it's a step-by-step instruction guide. It's got a lot of those video pointers. So even if you're not doing a virtual choir, there might be some great things there. That is a part of the sort of the free package that I have. I've got a couple of handouts in that, and then the $20 includes some other resources as well. So be sure to hop over and check that out if you're interested. Tom just shared what Jack Trip is. It's from Stanford. Fancy.
Oh, let's get excited about Stanford.
Let's get excited about Stanford. I will try to copy this link over into a banner. See, you're seeing the magic get made right now. It's super fun. All right, so if you're interested in Jack Trip, apparently that's what that is. So that's another potential option for singing together as well, apparently. So Tom, if you want to tell us a little bit more about that, please do in chat, and we will circle back to that as well. So we want to also ask, what other ways have you seen people use technology effectively for live events? So this is great for those of you who are like, oh, hey, I've used this piece of equipment, or this tech works really great, or I hate this thing, don't ever use it. So please let us know in comments what you love and what you hate when it comes to those sorts of things. So yes, we would love to hear that as well, because we definitely want to know what your experience has been with some of these other platforms.
Sarah, along those lines, the person who you did the Chorus America panel with,
yes.
Karen Siegel, she's with the C4 Choral Conductor Composers Collective. Think they have also pioneered a couple of really interesting new ways of doing some joint singing.
Yes.
The music is primarily based around aleatory, the new compositions around aleatory, but they are also using a software called Jamulus. Thank you. There it is, C4 Ensemble, Jamulus. And I believe that is a software that pairs well with Zoom to allow or to minimize the latency of Zoom, the latency of the drag between different people's internet speeds and so forth. And I believe, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but just the host needs to have Jamulus, correct? Instead of having every user have it. Well,
I'm not sure. I don't know for sure.
This link right here. Jamulus is an interesting concept to think about. It helps, though does not eliminate that latency on a Zoom call, for example.
Right. It's another kind of workaround, and they've been calling their work remote choir. So instead of virtual choir, which has a very specific connotation these days, remote choir, where you are actually live. And they also have some resources for those of you who want to do that using Zoom. It's, again, not a perfect workaround. There's always going to be latency and time issues, but that's another resource for you as well. So be sure to check out their stuff. And if you end up talking to Karen, say hi from me, because she's great. I loved working with her. All right, so I want to make sure that we move right along here. A lot of you had questions about, okay, but the money though, So how do we make it rain? We want to talk a little bit about fundraisers and about fees. But first, we want to ask you in comments, what are your money-making ideas for your organization that you're exploring a little bit? So we gave you a couple of examples. I want to give you a minute to go ahead and get your typing fingers ready and respond in comments. Which of these, if any, or others, are you considering? Because we definitely want to know what options are out there. So, I think as we think about money making in this new space, we run into lots of challenges because there is sort of this perception that if it's online, it is either like lesser value or that you should be giving it away for free or those sorts of things. And that can be really problematic, especially for organizations who are like, yeah, but we also need money to survive COVID-19. So as you're thinking about how do you do fundraisers, or how do you sell tickets? Do you do a subscription? Are you going to do like a pay what you can model? I'm curious what you all are thinking in terms of this. We've got a few comments coming in here.
Now we're hearing a bunch, somebody saying free content, but asking for donation.
That's a great...
donations to watch video on website. So maybe behind a paywall slightly. Pay what you can, tickets and donations. Yes. Free content, requesting donations during the content feed.
Great.
Yeah, exactly right. Somebody did actually say an online auction, paid access for VIP experience, nice. Including food and drink delivered to them at their home. Oh, that's fabulous.
That's a great idea. I love that. I love that. We've got, let's see, I clicked the wrong thing here. Considering selling tickets, and then we'll continue. I know, right?
Sorry.
This is the problem with StreamYard. Sometimes you click the wrong thing. So Susan says, considering selling tickets and or doing a text to donate during your event, that's a great option. And then Eva says, we'll continue selling subscriptions and ask for donations. So yeah, using your existing models a little bit and also exploring some new ones is definitely something that is worth considering. So we wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of the different approaches to this and what your technological considerations might be, because what you want to do informs how you should do it. I'll just put it that way.
And I will add that I think that even in this short period of time, the idea of an online fundraiser has shifted for a lot of donors. What at the beginning of, say, April, people were looking for the slickest, the most highly produced, the best connection to be the money driver may not necessarily be the case anymore. If people are now looking for reasons to get in touch with the organizations that they love the most, and relatively I would say that things are opening up in terms of what passes as an online fundraiser. So
Great.
Think about all of those things as you move into the idea of, yes, we're going to raise money online.
I would also say that you should always, anytime you are doing something live like this, make sure that you are either mentioning how people can support you, or you are plugging a product or service or something like that. If there's a donation button, or if you sell merchandise, if you have CDs that you want to sell, if you have music available for purchase online, whatever it is, if you have a store, if you're an artist who does like physical art, any of those sorts of things, be sure that you say so, because people don't always know unless you tell them. It can feel super weird when you're trying to be like, so you should buy my stuff because it's great, and it can be really uncomfortable. So just get practiced with that. But in a pre-produced event, you just make sure that you include those things throughout, and make sure that messaging is consistent. Ooh, what do we got here?
Somebody from the Minute Chat says our local symphony is going to show pre-recorded concerts on a big outdoor screen for a drive-in, and hybrid this with watching them from home. I think that's fantastic. See, it's excellent. It's like the combo virtual in-person thing that I think the world is going to be experiencing entirely over the next 3 years.
Agreed. So in terms of, if you're going to go kind of the free route, but you want to be frugal about it, right? You don't want to spend a ton of money. Your best tech options to reach your audience are going to be Facebook or YouTube. People always ask me, should I use Facebook or should I use YouTube? It depends is always the answer. So it depends on where your audience is and what you're trying to do. So if you are just trying to kind of do some short live stream kinds of things and you want to reach your audience more regularly, and you've got a pretty decent following on Facebook, people are engaging with your posts and you're kind of, building some presence there, I would recommend Facebook. If you are thinking about how do we embed this in our website and include something like a minute chat, like you all have been experiencing, then I would recommend YouTube. YouTube has kind of a better setup for embedding into websites than Facebook does. So it depends. If you're going to ask for donations, it's easier to put a donation link right in or around your video on your webpage than it is necessarily on Facebook, though you can also, do donation drives on Facebook as well. Facebook takes a cut of that, of course, but that's another option. So there are a bunch of different options for you that way. But make sure that if you're doing a donation-based thing, like we're offering this for free, but we would love your support, be clear and consistent in your communication about where to do that. Don't give people too many options. You kind of want to keep it clear and consistent to one, maybe two ways to do that. You don't want to send your people all over Kingdom Come trying to figure out how to support you. So if you can have a donate button very clearly, prominently displayed, or instruction in the video itself, if you're doing something pre-produced that says donate here, our website link. And make sure that that's an easily rememberable link as well, because as you know, when we put links up on the screen, it's like, okay, I got to scribble that down. So make sure that's easy for your people to understand. You can also share things about merchandise or recordings or downloads. One other model that exists out there, and this I think it occurs more for independent creators than necessarily for organizations, but there's a site called patreon.com, and I put at least the name of it up here on the slide. But Patreon allows you to connect with your followers and have them support you financially on a month-to-month basis. So on Patreon, you might find a video creator or a visual artist or any variety, podcasters, those sorts of things, who have a presence on Patreon, who are looking for support in creating something. And so you can sign up to be their patron for as low as like $1 a month, or $500 a month, however you want to set that up. But people can support you kind of on a more ongoing basis. So that's something worth exploring, especially if you're an independent artist or you're somebody who's working with a smaller group. That might be something worth kind of looking into as a potential payment option as well. And
I think if you've got a lot of pre-produced or previously recorded content, be it audio or video, that's a great model for Patreon. Just to say, we've got this content, we will release something special to you as our Patreon patron, every so often, and that makes your $5 a month or $10 a month Patreon subscription to us a very valuable way to think about it. That's just guaranteed content going out to your folks, and in return, they should be thinking about ways to support you. So I've got a number of organizations I work with, including Legacy Corral up in central Minnesota. They have a fall kind of fundraiser time that they get together every year, and by and large, their patrons, their folks, want to be a part of a live auction, as opposed to just giving to the organization. So they are taking that live auction into the online world this fall. And I had asked, had you considered just simply asking people for money? And they said, well, our folks really, we've learned over 30 years, our folks want to get something in return, something auction-like. And so they're committed to doing that. I still believe that fund the mission or funding your mission is the best way to go about that. But some organizations you might find, your organization, your patrons better than we do. So you might find that they really do want a different way to give you money. But also make an option on your website to give liberally on the website. Oftentimes we put our donate button as far down as we do on websites. Bring that bad boy to the top and put it on absolutely every page. Don't stop people from giving you money. Don't give them a way that makes that harder. They want to support you, especially right now. So give them that, especially on their website. In the great state of Minnesota, we have this wonderful new organization called givemin.org that handles our Give to the Max Day every fall. And that organization allows individual artists and organizations to definitely have their own mighty cause donation button. So if online donations are a new world for you, consider that embedding that mighty cause button on your page, and it looks just like a Give to the Max Day.
Yep, definitely. Don't put barriers up to people giving you money. And it's as simple as web design. It's very, very true. So another question from one of you all, Mickey asks, or Mickey, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, apologies. What things should we be considering when producing a pay-per-view production? All right, so let's talk a little bit about being behind the paywall, because things are a little bit different behind the paywall. So in terms of tech options, there are a variety of things to consider here. So the first thing I will say is that if you want content to be exclusive, you do not want to put it on YouTube. Even if it's unlisted, it is still, it's hidden on your page, but anybody with the link can share it with whoever they want. So if you have somebody who is a paying patron and they're like, oh, this is so great, and then they decide to share it with their friends, that you cannot stop them. There is no password protect. There's nothing like that. So if you're really committed to making sure that your content does stay behind the paywall, YouTube is not the way to go there. There is a platform called Vimeo, which a lot of people are familiar with. Vimeo is great for certain things and terrible for others. Like every one of these platforms is. So Vimeo is great for flexibility, for reach and control. It's very embeddable. You can do password protect and those sorts of things. There's not great chat functionality or any chat functionality, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but it was not clear that there was a chatting option. So, at least not in the sort of standard Vimeo setup. It's also really bad for streaming because you need the super expensive premium plan in order to stream. So in general, Vimeo starts at about $20 a month for any videos that you want to sell. So if you want to use Vimeo to kind of put up your paywall, Vimeo does allow you to do that. So that's something worth exploring for those of you who are doing pre-produced events that you want to put behind a paywall for subscribers or ticket holders or that sort of thing. That's definitely a way to go. So then it would be a password protected video. So only people who have paid for a ticket and have a password can access it. And the payment can also run through your site if you would prefer to do it that way as well. So Vimeo is definitely something to recommend or to look at if that's the kind of event you want to host. For those of you who are looking at doing live streams and you want to make sure that those are behind a paywall, I early on in the pandemic ended up on a live stream, something that was using Crowdcast, and I actually really liked Crowdcast. It was kind of great, but Crowdcast does have integrated chat. It has a paywall. It'll give you kind of a website landing page. It has integration with Stripe, which is one of these online payment platforms that's pretty common. It's a little bit less embeddable. So if you want to put it on your website, it's a little clunky, but it's $20 a month to start that plan as well. So again, depending on what you're looking for, you're going to want a different kind of platform. And then in terms of kind of a DIY version, you could create on your own website. For most web platforms allow this now. You can create kind of a members only page, right? Where you say only people with this password can enter this particular web page. And so you could host all of your content with Vimeo links or whatever, and kind of create it on your own that way as well. So using a members only or a subscribers only or something like that, and building it on your own on your site might also be an option worth exploring. Other ideas about that, Adam?
Well, a couple of things just to talk there. Those I mentioned in minute chat here, but those of you who might be using Patron Manager, the Salesforce-based Arts CRM, Stripe, and therefore Crowdcast speak very well together. So it seems relatively easy to move from a ticketing model on Patron Manager into Crowdcast. And ditto with the DIY version of a members only page. You could do that on your Patron Manager portal. What used to be the portal, you can create that for a specific group within your CRM. I probably am speaking to some of our audience right now with that. But what I'm thinking about is larger ways to tie in all of your existing customer relationship management into paywall options. And Crowdcast and a DIY version would definitely do that.
I'm guessing if I were to say something like, how many people have a headache from all of the platforms that you have to use to make the business possible? And isn't it annoying when they don't all work together and talk to each other? I'm guessing a lot of you would be like, yep, that for sure. So yes, feel that pain for sure. So you do want to do some exploration about integrations and see, does it integrate with your existing, like Adam said, CRM or ticketing or any of the other kinds of platforms that you are currently using? So that's definitely something worth considering as well. I think one of the other things, and we'll talk a little bit about this with communication, I think as well, but when patrons buy tickets, what are they getting? And communicating that very clearly, maybe you're going to have some content that is behind a paywall and some that isn't. So being really clear and explicit about what are you sharing and what aren't you, what's located where and how is it accessed, and considering the user experience, right? Considering what is it like for the person who is watching this content and trying to access this content. One of the reasons that Adam and I like StreamYard so much for something like this is it's really easy for all of you to see our slides and see us and interact in chat and that sort of thing. So platforms that make it easy for your participants to engage with you are definitely worth exploring. And then, there's these questions about, do you do a subscription or a one-time or a pay what you can? These are all budgetary considerations that you do need to take into account, obviously, when you are creating and crafting your virtual events. And so we just raise these as questions to consider to mull, because, there's a lot that goes into creating an effective virtual event for you.
Sarah, we're getting a lot of folks talk about some really interesting kind of paywall options. Both Cricket Handler says that both Cal Poly University choirs and San Jose State have used Feel It Live. Live, which is a different kind of paywall. I've seen concerts on seated.com, seated as though you were going to be seated.com. And Confident Humanoid says, looking at the possibility of ourconcerts.live. So there's some fantastic options for folks to take a look at in the minute chat here on developlayllc.com. So if you want to take a look at those, I think that Feel It Live, Seated, and Our Concerts Live may all be geared slightly more towards like a touring band show, which are great. And I would be curious to see how they interact with live choral sound, for example. So that's really interesting. Keep those suggestions coming. We'd love to hear about it. We will keep talking about them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So then, Julie, oh dear Julie, you asked the question on everybody's mind, which is, what is everybody paying for video production? Our company just raised their prices by more than 3 times what we paid for our first video. Ouch. And I'm just wondering, what is a fair price? And I'm sorry, y'all, you're going to hate me, but I'm going to tell you it depends. It really, really depends for video production. And Adam and I both do some work in this area and would be happy to talk to you individually about, what your group needs specifically. But when you are approaching a video producer, the things to keep in mind are things like the length of your event. Is it going to be pre-produced or is it going to be live? There are different kind of fee structures and things that go into those pieces of it. Are you using existing content that's already been edited that just kind of needs to be plugged in some way? Basically, the question is, how much work are you asking the editor to do? Are you just giving them the stuff and say, put it together? Or are you saying, we need your help to craft a full event and think about the ways that these things all kind of interweave together, and how does this meet our mission, and those sorts of things? Like that's a different ask than a more simple video edit. So just be aware that that's going to come with a price tag. A virtual choir is a beast unto its own. Boy, let me tell you.
Let's talk about that for a second. I think that's a lot of what folks are. One way to take a look at numbers. It really depends on what you're looking for. If you, as Sarah mentioned, if you just want a video editor to put together a basic virtual choir, I think you might want to be looking somewhere in the give or take $1,500 for one choral octavo, somewhere around there. Basic. Now I'll go, and that's for, let's say, 40 submissions. Okay, so a choir of 40 would have everyone submit their thing that way. When you go up in terms of number of choristers or number of people submitting, it goes up significantly in terms of what video editors are looking for. All the way to the Association of Lutheran Church Musicians put together a fantastic virtual choir, but it was with 1,000 submissions, 1,000 singers, and 1,000 musicians playing all together.
I do not
instrumentalists.
I do not envy those video producers.
But I can tell you what the cost of that was, and it was $10,000 for the video editor. They did a great job of bringing all that in house, but you have to think about what goes into that. They have to have enough server space for video and audio for 10,000 people, or for 1,000 people. Excuse me. So
10,000. Okay, hold on, buddy.
Right, exactly.
Heart palpitations over here.
So don't think that it's terribly easy to put into a virtual choir. I think a lot of people think that yes, it is simple. Sarah makes it look very easy, but what you might find is that all of a sudden these folks are getting a lot of work, and therefore the demand is going up and the supply is going down. So think about simple economic terms about what that looks like. And frankly, you want to encourage some of your video editors to find a little art in the process. Right. You also want it to look nice, look different. One of my favorites, again, referencing Sarah's panel discussion at Course America, was the folks from Vocal Collective out in Denver put together this unbelievably cool virtual choir where you saw the faces pop up, but it was actually as though it's in a street scene moving into a house. So the video person they used is stellar, and I highly recommend. Maybe be a little bit more creative about how you put together your virtual choir. Perhaps it's audio only, and you're creating a seamless video product that doesn't include all the faces that everybody has been seeing aloud. Maybe it is purely the faces or one face, and you're hearing multiple others around you, and all of those things can impact the cost. Sorry to take over a little bit of time right there, Miss Sarah,
but totally fine.
I want to get real about virtual choirs for a little while, because I think there's a sense that people want to do a virtual choir to keep their members engaged. I get it. Are there other ways to keep members engaged and not have to rely on that conceit for that purpose? So
Yep, agreed.
I'm going to step off my little soapbox.
Your little soapbox about virtual choirs. No, I think when you're thinking about cost with respect to virtual choir, one of the things, people want the idea of like, oh, everybody's singing together. What I would actually recommend is if you can break up your group a little bit, if you've got a bigger group, and do some smaller pieces, because if you do a group of 10, that's going to cost you less, most likely for most people, than a group of 100. Because the reason the cost is so high, with the numbers being what they are, if they're really, really large numbers, is just the sheer number of files that we are having to put together. And not only that, we're also doing a lot of work on the audio mixing side of things, because we're all singing into cell phones, which have pretty decent cameras and microphones, but they are not totally fabulous either. So there's a lot of audio fixing that has to go into it as well. So you're paying for audio mixing and for video production. So those are two big things that you're paying for when you're doing a virtual choir. Yes, there was somebody engaged a newcomer in the minute chat says there is an audio only app that is collaborative and is fabulous. I can confirm this because I'm currently using it. It is called Soundtrap. I'm going to put it in a banner right here. So Soundtrap allows you, it's sort of like GarageBand for any of you that have played with GarageBand, but it's collaborative. So you can invite people from anywhere to submit their audio, and basically they're recording along with whatever track you have available. So it works really well. It has some audio editing features in it, not a ton, but so if you're feeling pedantic about audio mixing and want to play with that a little bit, it's not as robust that way, but it does allow you to collect audio from people all over the place. So it's definitely a great thing if you are looking for just sort of an audio only option. I see we're getting some comments in here. That I think this is a great point from Cricket Handler, who says, speaking about audio or video, I think for many singers, the idea of a video of themselves is very intimidating, and they might be more comfortable doing just the audio. You're totally right. And thing we should also say about virtual choirs is talk to your singers first about this, about how comfortable they are participating in that way. I've had groups where singers have said, I don't want my face on the screen. I'm really uncomfortable with that. Could I submit audio? You have other people who are like, I'm okay with my face on the screen, but I don't want my audio mixed in the mix. There are some who are concerned about, submitting their video or their audio and having their artistic director listen to it and kick them out of the group. I mean, these are concerns that real singers have. And so I think it's worth doing some work in talking with your singers a little bit about what it means to do a virtual choir and what it doesn't mean. I'll speak for myself and the clients that I work with, that I, as a singer, I have done a few of these, and I know how intimidating it can be, and how crazy making in some cases, where you're like, this is the 11th take of this song and I still can't get it right. And so that is a process for a lot of people. So being really thoughtful about how you frame that. And then also for those working with me, I set up a whole system where, frankly, the artistic director doesn't get to hear any of it until I have done a little bit of mixing. So that also sometimes can allay some fears too. Sometimes if you are the artistic director who's also doing the video editing, that's not a thing that's possible. So just make sure that you're being very transparent and communicative with your singers about what that looks like. Adam.
We've got Pondering Being, who is my good friend Steve Humberg in here, says, we've chosen to use virtual choir as an option for our annual choral festival, high school students in particular.
Nice.
A credibility and quality from significant collaboration, which is great. A core group will record many of those kind of guide tracks, which is excellent. And I like the idea of using a virtual choir for a gathering of singers that don't normally sing together.
Yes.
I think that's a really cool way to go about that. So yeah, Steve, let us know how it goes. I'm super excited to hear that. A little birdie told me that they may have found the video editor that did Eric Whitaker's original virtual choir for that program. So very cool. But I like the concept strategically of how you bring a virtual choir setting into maybe your educational outreach components for your organization. And that could work throughout disciplines as well. Imagine dancers collaborating in a virtual space way away, way far away, that have not danced together. So things like that, really, really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam, I want to make sure that we finish up talking about the cost issue with a note about timeline. I love all of you who have sent inquiries on my website. For any of you who might be out here, I will say, for me, I need at least a month of editing time. So if you are looking to do a virtual choir next week, that's too fast. Don't do it. So make sure that you are planning ahead for these things. And this would extend to virtual events as well. This takes a lot of work to put together, and a lot of thought and planning that goes into these things. So make sure you're building several months in advance of, because you have to think about, if you're going to do a virtual thing, you got to think about rehearsals with your singers. You got to think about, how are we going to get them the information they need to learn the piece, to record the piece, to get the pieces to the editor, to have the editor do an audio edit, to then do a video edit. It takes a long time. So, I definitely recommend, for those of you who are thinking about doing a virtual event or doing a virtual choir or something in the next few months, ask now, because what Adam said earlier is really true. A lot of us are running out of time and space. There is just not enough time, and there's only one of me. And so, I think for those of you who are seriously thinking about this, you need to start initiating those conversations really soon. And whether that's with Adam or I, or whether that's with somebody else, just be thoughtful about how much time it really takes to put all of this together, and what it will take for everybody involved. So that's I'll top off my soapbox about that.
Lots of new ideas about different software to use. Sarah, just want to jump in.
Great.
Tom says this is about BandLab, a social music creation service for free.
Cool.
Looks like it's got some really interesting mixer editor components, web-based on computers. That's super cool. He's using it with his barbershop chorus, which is great. And Christine from Connecticut tells us about SoundJack, real-time online music service. So some
nice
options to think about there. SoundJack, which looks really pretty fantastic. So yeah, very cool options here. Keep them coming. I think just to add on to my last point, I think Steve's goal, again, with the virtual choir for Choral Festival, is to provide meaningful, albeit brief, curriculum for high school teachers during a difficult time. So again, very cool reasons to use these all together. Yes, we love it. People keep coming with these ideas and these options. Keep coming.
So good. All right, so we're kind of wrapping up on our time here. So if you have those questions that you've been like, I wonder if they're going to cover this, and they haven't covered it yet, get your typing fingers ready, and please let us know in comments, because we're going to talk about a few other things and wrap up our time together here. But yes, we want to get to all of your questions, so please do let us know in chat what you're still wondering about. So in terms of what's next, well, let's talk about it. Taco.
Oh God, the puns are just terrible.
They bring me so much joy, mostly because I get that reaction.
Okay, good. Well, good.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about communication. So Adam, communication, no puns.
Once you've decided to go about this crazy endeavor of creating virtual events, whether they be small virtual events or virtual happenings or a large virtual presentation, because people you expect to be on this are looking from a virtual space already, email is absolutely the best way to go about this. If you happen to have an email component in your database or CRM, absolutely lead your emails with these wonderful videos you might be creating as kind of marketing promotion going on through. Email is absolutely fantastic because it ideally should bring people to your website, your digital house. You want to have that house in good shape, but I think email is a great way to do that, and it's by far the thing that people want to engage with for their hobbies. By far the thing they want to engage with for their hobbies. Tell your folks about all of your new virtual endeavors in the same ways and even more that you would for your existing in-person concerts when we could do those. I think oftentimes we think, well, we'll just do this virtual event and people will find it on the web. No, use the exact same ways that you have in the past and expand those to include more and different virtual capacities as well. So email is excellent for that. It's a great way to kind of get a perfect delivery system for your virtual content. And people have opted into your organization on your email. That's why it's a fantastic way to go about that. So, think about ways that communications can stay strong during virtual events and perhaps even more so.
Great point. Great point. These are the people who want to hear from you. So, make sure that you talk to them. turns out they want to know from you. The other question that sometimes comes up about communication is how much is too much, and that's always a hard line to kind of find. But in this time where we're all engaging in the virtual space a lot, there's a lot being thrown at us all the time. And so sometimes, especially for anybody who ever pops on Facebook or anything, I never see half of the posts of the people I follow over there. So don't expect all of your followers to see all of your communications. So it's okay to talk about something that's coming up more than once. In fact, please do. And thinking about different ways to kind of tell the story about what that event is going to be like, what the experience is going to be like. The other bit goes a little bit into some communication strategy perspectives in terms of how do you talk about this? Instead of going the route of we are doing a performance at this time, at this place, and here's the stuff we're doing, less about you and more about the audience. So whoever that audience is, if that's your singers, great. If that's your, patrons who typically buy tickets, that's great. If it's an online audience that you're growing that you are kind of getting to know, think about what it is that they're looking for and what's going to make them excited about your event. You are talking to your people. This is about them, not about you. So make sure that you're thinking when you're thinking about communications in these areas to really be audience focused, especially in this time when people are being bombarded with stuff. To like, look at us, look at over here. Really think about what is it that the audience you want to reach needs. Even when we were thinking about this virtual event stream that we're doing right now, we were thinking, okay, what are the pieces that people are just eager to find out about, and how do we talk about that, and how do we make sure that we're making it clear that it's going to be a little bit of fun and there's going to be some singing, so stick around. We will have a little bit of that at the end, but it's also going to be really informative and hopefully answer a lot of your questions. So just think a little bit about what story you're trying to tell with the event and what your people want to hear.
Absolutely. There's folks that have asked questions, coming around here that I'm sorry to pop that up, but the BC Chorus wants to know as we start to dabble in virtual programming and look at our digital presence, frequency and variety of virtual events. How often is too often? How few is too few? I think it's a great question. It really depends on your knowledge of your patron base and your member base. I think there are so many different ways to be creative with your virtual events, all the way from lo-fi interview components with different members of your community, music director, donors, singers, and so forth, as kind of lead-in marketing to larger events. And then I think as much as you're able to kind of tie it to what your patrons expect. If your patrons are expecting 35 concerts a year, doing 35 virtual events might be a little tricky. But if you have a way of kind of having a generally similar calendar to what folks know, that's a great way to start. If you then look at the budget and say, oh, that that might not exactly work with what I can afford. Then you tailor from there. But I think managing your patrons' expectations and how you play off of those in terms of frequency of events is great. But it's all the maybe different sized things in between those larger events that can also be add to the virtual garden that you're tending a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. And that also brings up the question about, do you do a one-time event or do you do ongoing content and those sorts of things? Again, it's going to depend a little bit on your audience and what you're trying to accomplish with them. But, I think a lot of, choral organizations especially are thinking about, well, this is when we do our program, so we have to do a virtual program. Well, do you? I guess that's do you have to do that? Is that the thing? And if it's what your audience expects and you want to lean into that, I think that totally makes sense if that fits with your mission and your purpose. But for some, it may be like, well, hold on, do we need to do an event in the same way that we've been thinking about it, or could we do something else? Because this is an opportunity to kind of play a little bit. We've all kind of ended up in our patterns, for lack of a better term. And I think in some ways, COVID is teaching us to be a little more flexible and to also look for different opportunities out there. So also, I would suggest watch a lot of stuff, because you'll get great ideas just from watching things and being like, that was super cool. I wonder how they did that. And then reach out to those people and ask them, because you can also do that now. People are much more happy to talk to people because we're all on our computers all the time.
That, and I think that certain pockets develop some really different expertise and are willing to share that at different levels. I mean, this is exactly, I'm a choir director and I have a 6-year-old. I had no idea I'd be doing virtual events, at this point, even 3 months ago. So the way that we Sarah and I have Sarah more particularly because she's designed for this, but the way that I felt like I've kind of fallen into this, it's because you learn by doing. And I think people are really willing to share that which they've learned by doing. Great.
Did we have any other questions coming in particularly that you noticed, Adam?
No, I think we're kind of wrapping up towards our time here. I think people are kind of feeling like they've got a lot of their questions answered, but we would gladly take some more if you had them.
Yeah. Some people are asking, is this being recorded? I'd like to share it with my staff. Yes, it will be available on YouTube forever. Well, at least as long as YouTube exists, which at this point seems like an inevitability of forever. So there we go. How can we help you? So this is how to get best way to kind of get connected with Adam and myself. Adam at openvoicesllc.com. Fancy new website.
Woohoo! Shout out to Paul Rudoy for helping with that.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Paul.
Paul.
You're great. And then my website, where a lot of you are watching this right now. So, just feel free to poke around and see what you can find. I don't even know some of what's up there anymore. But hopefully you can find some cool stuff there. And again, feel free to reach out to Adam or myself anytime that you have questions. We love chatting with people about this stuff. And if we can help you create your virtual event or your virtual season of some variety, we would love to talk with you more about that. Any other last questions? Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot. So Adam, you want to talk a little bit about beer choir and then maybe lead a little sing along for those? Well,
certainly. I think it's a good time to do some singing. We are fast approaching happy hour here in Minnesota. And
this is one of those times where I wish I had a fridge in my office because I could just be like, beer now, please. But
absolutely.
I'll go with water.
One of the very fun parts of our work world is Sarah and I run Beer Choir, which is a national community building organization. There are 30 chapters nationwide of varying activity levels, and we also run the Beer Choir Twin Cities chapter, our flagship chapter here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And it's a very fun event. We are not able to do our in-person events right now. We're making a choice not to do those through 2020. But what we have shifted to is a little bit of a virtual happy hour event where we have some really exciting guests throughout the choral and beer worlds nationwide. Come on and join us for about 35-40 minutes of singing and games and fun and frivolity, and maybe some in-depth real questions with our guests from time to time. And it's a great opportunity to just let loose on a Thursday evening at 8 o'clock Central and have a beer with us. But one of the ways that we have kind of come into this is exploring these different virtual events. This is a very informal, we're hoping it feels polished, at least for these virtual happy hours, but informal broadcast all the time. We take questions throughout and want to know what people are saying. So something that we've learned to do kind of on the fly here using this fantastic broadcast system named StreamYard. So
before you do, sorry, so we have a question from Susan, which segues very nicely from what you just said, which is how do we set up a webinar like this on YouTube? Susan, the best news in the world is that StreamYard is like 2 clicks. Honestly, if you go to StreamYard.com and you sign up for an account, it'll say, which platform do you want to connect to? It'll have you log into that platform. And then it basically, in the back end, does a little connection thing where it connects it for you. And then you just push the go live button. It's super simple. So StreamYard is great for that. So definitely would recommend that's how you do that. Okay, I'm done, Adam. You can continue singing.
No. It's great. I think it's time. Join us Thursdays. We're going to take tomorrow off because Sarah and I are both out of town. But coming back on the 23rd, I know it normally says 8 o'clock Central. That is correct. But on the 23rd of July, we are going to be joined by Matt Hugh Greer, the Artistic Director of Quintessence, a choral arts ensemble of the Southwest. His virtual choral festival is happening all of next week. We're very excited about that. And he will be our special guest coming directly from Quarter Celtic Brewery in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so you'll have a chance to join us. That is 6:30 Central Time, 7:30 Eastern, and 4:30 Pacific. So join us.
So many time zones.
So many time zones. Time zones are a thing. But one of the things we do for every Beer Choir Virtual Happy Hour is we start with our Beer Choir theme song, composed by the godfather of Beer Choir himself, Michael Engelhardt. Shout out to Mike in St. Louis. You are the man. We love you. And it's very simple. So I'm going to teach it to you. And I would encourage you to sing with me because everybody needs a little bit of singing exercise. So very simply, I'm going to read the top line, and we start with a very, very long held first note. The beer choir is the choir that sings while drinking beer. The beer choir is the choir that sings while drinking beer. The beer choir is the choir that sings while drinking beer. So bottoms up, cheers. Let's sing while drinking beer. So that's how we do these sing-alongs. This is something that you can do with your choirs at home. Put up some sheet music on the Zoom or on the StreamYard or whatever you're using, and ask people to join you in song. I would normally sing through that a couple times, knowing that there are a handful of people throughout the country singing along with me. Or you could also, if you happen to have some pre-produced video or previously recorded video, ask people to sing along with a video that looks a little bit like this.
Woohoo! Hold on. Here we go.
So bottoms up, cheers! Let's sing verse 2. Cheers! Next key. The beer choir is cheers! Let's sing while drinking beer choir. Very nice, everybody.
Prost, and thank you everybody for joining us. That's exactly kind of how we like to sing along together. If we had beers, we would clink them and drink them. But please check out Beer Choir at beerchoirtwincities.com or beerchoir.com. You can also learn more at openvoicesllc.com. Right through there. But that's just a couple ways to present music here on a broadcast like this on StreamYard. You can either put up the sheet music and ask your folks to sing along from where they are in the comfort of their own home, or bring a video, a pre-produced video, and put it up in that way. So just a couple of other options. We like to think of Beer Choir as our very fun and tasty test laboratory for all things virtual events. So thank you very much, MK Brian, for joining us, and all of you who are out there. We really, really appreciate it. Abby Batinas wants to remind us yet again that permissions from the composer are always absolutely possible.
You're very right.
Yes, very, very true, Abby, and cheers, and I hope you're well. Sarah, thank you very much for getting this organized. You are kind of the queen bee of all things virtual right now, and we are so very excited to be here with everybody and hear from you, especially. This is great.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you, Adam, for jumping on and talking about virtual events. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. Like I said, reach out to us with questions and feel free to share this stream wherever you want. We wanted to make it freely accessible so that anybody could learn how to create your own virtual events. So with that, I think we will depart. I don't know. That seems like a good way to end, right? Super awkwardly, like. I don't have any more music puns.
We will depart? Is that how you're going to end?
That's
say
it.
good night, everybody.
No puns? No music puns? All right.
None. No puns.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll
Appreciate it.
Soon.